Hey guys, Miss Shane here, and this is lesson 5, solving equations using the distributive property. Our materials are pretty much the same as they have been. You're going to want a piece of paper and pen or pencil to take notes. Your textbook, either online or hard copy, algebra tiles, and the equation mat are still optional. We're probably not going to use them very much today, so you probably won't need them, but they're there if you want them. Our content objective for today is to be able to solve an equation involving the distributive property. And our language objective is to be able to recognize those legal moves. And we will refresh our memories on those in a second. If you are using your physical textbook, turn it to page 342. And if you're using the online text, we're still in chapter 6, but we are moving on to section 6.2.2. We're going to start out with problem 6-6B about Chen and his sister. Okay, so Chen's sister made this riddle for him to solve. I am thinking of a number. If you add 2 to the number, then triple it, you get 9. Part A says to build the equation on an equation mat using algebra tiles, but first, I kind of just want to break down this expression. So it says, I'm thinking of a number. We don't know what that number is. That's the whole point, right? We're trying to figure out what that number is. When we're writing an equation, what do we use to represent a number that we don't know? All right, so that's when we're going to use a variable. So we'll call Chen's sister's number X. The next part says if you add 2 to the number, so I know how to add 2 to a number, right? I'm just going to add 2. The next part is where it gets a little bit tricky. It says then triple it. So triplet, of course, just means to multiply it by 3, but that then is really important. If we look at our PEMDAS, multiplication happens before addition, but I want x plus 2 to happen before I triple it. So I'm going to add parentheses around my x plus 2 so that it happens first, and then I can triple it. Remember, a number next to a parentheses like that just means it's multiplied. So this is still the same as tripling it. All right, the last part says you get 9, and that's just a fancy way of saying it equals 9, right? That's what you're left with once you do all of that. It's equal to 9. Okay, so there is one equation to represent the riddle that Chen's sister made. But part A says we need 2 ways. So let's take this over to our equation mat. We have 3 times the quantity of x plus 2 in parentheses is equal to 9. All right, so the part that's in the parentheses is easy, right? I have x plus 2, but then I need that 3 times, right? I need to triple that part. So you can almost imagine your parentheses around those algebra tiles because it's just like up here, that's the part that I have to do 3 times. Okay, and then on the right side, that's pretty simple. I just have 9 unit squares. Okay, so let's get rid of these parentheses and rearrange a little bit. Now it's easier to see what we have on the left side. So I have 3x plus 6, and then on the right side, I have 9. So I just created an equation. 3x plus 6 is equal to 9. So both of these expressions, 3 times the quantity of x plus 2 in parentheses and 3x plus 6, are both equal to 9. That means that both of these have the same value and are actually equal to each other. All right, so how do I get from this expression to this expression? This is where that distributive property comes in. So I'm going to distribute this 3 to the x. Now this parentheses is still here, so that tells me I'm going to do multiplication. 3 times x gives me 3x, and then I'm going to distribute this 3 over to the 2 as well. Okay, this parentheses is still here, so it's still being multiplied by this 2, and 3 times 2 gives me 6. Now these two terms that I came up with match the terms that we found in our second equation. All right, so that is using the distributive property. because we distributed this 3 to the x and to the 2, right? We distributed this 3 to both parts in the expression. Okay, so we found our two equations for Chen's sister's riddle. Part B says to solve the equation. So it doesn't matter which one you use to solve the equation. Usually ones without the parentheses is going to be easier to solve, but you can do it either way. If we use our steps for solving equations, our first one says to combine like terms on each side. This is already simplified as much as it can on both sides, right? I can't combine anything over here, and obviously I can't combine anything over here. Step 2 says to isolate the variable. I already have all of my variables over on one side, so that's good. I'm going to isolate my constants. So I need to get this 6 over here to this 9. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. That'll cancel out the 1 on the left, and I'll be left with just 3x. And then on the right, I'll subtract 6 and be left with 3. All right, my next step, step 4 is what I'm on right now, is to apply inverse operations. So this 3 is being multiplied by x, which means I have to apply division because that's the inverse operation of multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 3. I divide by 3 so that these two can cancel each other out, and then I can just be left with 1x or x on the left side. These two will also cancel out, and 3 divided by 3 is 1, like we just said. So then I'm left with the solution of x is equal to 1. I know step 5 is to check your solution, but we're going to come back to that in just a second. All right, so we solved our equation and found x is equal to 1. The second part of B, though, says that we want to show your work by writing the equation after each legal move. So if I go back, all right, to my steps over here, each legal move were the ones that I did here. So subtracting 6 was a legal move, and dividing by 3 were legal moves. All right, so the parts that happen after each of those steps or before are, those are the equations that I would write down to show my work after each legal move, right? I subtracted 6 and I ended up with this. I divided by 3 and I ended up with this. So that's how you can show your work by writing each step of the equation. All right, and we got x is equal to 1, but part C says, when Chen told his sister the mystery number in the riddle, she said he was wrong. Chen was sure he had figured out the correct number. Find a way to justify that you have the correct solution in part B. So justify means to prove. We need to prove that we have the correct solution up here, that 1 is the correct solution. How can we prove that we have the correct solution? So this is where that substitution is going to come in, okay? So it doesn't matter which equation you choose. We're going to take our solution of x is equal to 1. We're going to substitute a 1 for the x in both equations. We'll apply our order of operations, and we'll end up with two true statements of 9 is equal to 9 and 9 is equal to 9. So since we ended up with true statements, two expressions that are equal to each other, that means our solution of x is equal to 1 is correct, because that was the magic number that we had to plug in here to make this side equal to 9 as well. All right, so that was how he justified his solution. We have the correct solution. We use substitution, x is equal to 1. Good. All right, our assignment for this section, I'm going to post that in just a minute, but I want you to watch the help video first. We're going to be making an effort to try and do algebra tiles on a Google online. So it's going to be a little bit tricky, so make sure that you watch the help video first so that you understand what you're doing, okay? Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day.